From Darlington, South Carolina to the Canadian province of Ontario, the Breitling Cup Series returns for its seventh round of the season at its first road course in Mosport Raceway Park, better known to racing fans as Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, where 42 teams will take on this treacherous 12-turn road course for a grand total of 26 laps. The fans are excited, the drivers are all ready to go. But the big talk here has been the first road course of the Breitling Cup Series schedule. How will the drivers and teams be able to take it on? We're going to ahead and get your starting lineup. J.D. Martin surprised a lot of people by putting his number 66 Sunny D Toyota Camry on the front row with Lane Sanders. But the big talk has been post-race after Darlington's 6 teams, including your points leader Christian Vargas, were hit with massive penalties, sending Vargas all the way back down outside of the top 10 in points, with Nick Breeding now being your points leader. He is in row number 6. The teams are going to have to be careful for this race, as with a being the first road course of the Breitling Cup Series schedule, it is not known how these cars are going to act. It's not known how they're going to take this on, as you see several cars are going to the rear, including all the Wisco Motorsports cars. The teams are ready. The fans are ready to go for 26 laps around this 12-turn road course. We're going to go ahead and get your command to fire engines. Of course, J.D. Martin will get a surprising pole. He was able to really show us up in qualifying. And of course, to his outside, you have Lane Sanders. Sanders has a special scheme this week with the Domino's Emergency Pizza. And then Charles Sanford. Sanford has had a really rough go to the season since he started out at Atlanta. He got a good finish there, but has not had a bunch of good runs since. As we come around here, turn number 7, J.D. Martin and Lane Sanders are still side by side. The pace car is getting ready to pull in. There it goes. Martin and Sanders, Sanford and Mac Johnson, Finguy and Hamill round out your top 6. The green flag is out, and we are racing here at Canadian Tire. Martin with a big jump going through turn number 1. Lane Sanders will cycle back out to second. Mac Johnson trying to get third place. He's going for second on Sanders. He pulls alongside. Won't be able to get it. Jeffrey Finguy trying to push Charles Sanford through to get to the top 5. Derek Hamill holding tough in 6th. Vince Freeze trying to get another top 10 to be his second straight top 10, his third in a row. As we come downhill for the first time today, J.D. Martin is going to hold. Let's check the field, see how it goes through here. Sanford slides a little bit, so does Finguy. Everybody seems to get through okay. Really, really stacked up here. We see him going up the hill. It's Jeff Bolton here, and really, really strong race in about the top 9 or so are single file. Up front, we have a fight for second place. Charles Sanford trying to get around Lane Sanders. J.D. Martin has checked out. That's something that you really need to happen here. Canadian Tire, you can get a good distance between you and the rest of the field. You are really set. Sanford and Sanders are still fighting. That's 20 and 0-1. Mac Johnson back to 4th place. Jeffrey Finguy will fall to 5th. He is still hanging tough on the JBL Toyota. He'll get that spot. Sanders slips back to 3rd behind Charles Sanford. J.D. Martin he held a 1.58 second lead. He was able to open up. That's really good for him. And that team is trying to turn their season around. His teammate, the 99, Asher Evelyn, the 00 Christian Vargas. Vargas was the point leader before his penalty after Darlington, and Asher Evelyn has had several really good runs this season. Overall, the 66 team has just really been the third wheel. This Sunny D team, they've told me, I spoke to his crew chief this morning, told me that they just could not find speed some weeks, and they've just had a lot of little things go wrong in other weeks. But they've really put together a good qualifying effort, and you can see it here. But Sanford has slowly started to reel in the number 66. Lane Sanders is slipped back, and Finn Guy and Mac Johnson are still fighting for the 4th position. Derek Hamill is here. So is Ryan Griffin. Griffin has been very vocal. I spoke to him this morning about his opinion on road courses. He does not like this type of racing at all. It's just not his style, and something always seems to go bad. Always seems to happen to him when we come here. But Griffin told me said that he felt like he had a really good race car. The Fago team really figured out this setup, and though he doesn't like it, he is fighting. He is 7th right now. His teammate and Derek Hamill is up here in 6th. Mac Johnson's able to hold off 4th place from Jeffrey Finn Guy. However, the lead has expanded from 1.58 to 1.83 seconds between J.D. Martin and Charles Sanford. Lane Sanders holding it back with 3.3 seconds. And now its battle is on again between Mac Johnson and Jeffrey Finn Guy. Finn Guy is going to have the advantage here. We have a pair of left-handers and then a right-hander. See how it goes. Finn Guy sails it in here. The Mayer Ford Mustang. Ooh, Derek Hamill almost made contact there. And Jeffrey Finn Guy slicks away. He'll get the 4th position. Mac Johnson falls into the clutches of Derek Hamill. Vince Freeze has showed up. He is now in the 7th position. He passed Ryan Griffin. Nick Breeding, your points leader, is back to 9th. Christian Vargas is also back here. Vargas and that points penalty is not what that 00 team wanted. They had a ride height issue, which, you know, they fought, but they lost the appeal. I spoke to Vargas about this. He said he is not concerned at all. He thinks that he can run down. He thinks that he can easily get back up with the points lead, especially how chaotic this season has been. He has to beat Nick Breeding, though. Breeding is currently the points leader by a very, very, very slim margin, I might add. And that's what Vargas pointed out. He said the top 22 are separated by a race's worth of points. The top 8 are separated by 20 points. He believes that if he can really capitalize on some bad days and he can continue running the way he has been, he'll be back up front leading the points in no time. Contact between the 8 and the 00. Some contact there. Ryan Griffin is just dropping like a stone now. He's lost this will be 3 spots since the start of the race. Vince Freeze has gotten around Derek Hamill. That number 9 team is really showing their muscle today. Back up front, though, the lead has shrunk by a couple of tenths between the 66 and the 20. Lane Sanders has also closed a full second on the front 2. Jeffrey Finn Guy is also trying to get up front. And Sanders and Finn Guy, we sat down with them at the start of this weekend, right after qualifying. They are very, very big rivals on these kinds of racing. Sanders said that this kind of racing really suits his driving style. And Jeffrey Finn Guy has always had good road course experience. Seeing these two fighting, here we are side by side for 3rd now. Seeing these two fight, it carries a lot of weight with that. And Sanders told me, he said he had done the 24 hours a Daytona before. And Sanders told me that really prepped him for doing long road course stints. This seems like a field trip compared to what you do. We've had a couple of other 24-hour drivers in the field. Jeffrey Finn Guy has done it at least once. But you ask these drivers what they have to do to prepare for different road course races. And it's so different compared to, say, a short track or a mile and a half or a super speedway even, because quite frankly, it's completely different. But of course, Sanford he has run down J.D. Martin in the 66. Martin is really not saying anything over the radio. Charles Sanford is complaining about his car being too free on exit. And that just means what I think that means is the tires are just hot, they're angry, they're slick, and Sanford just cannot get the power down. And you see it there. Martin was able to pull a few car lengths on Sanford. But Sanford is doing his best to hold on to that 66. And I believe Sanford will be able to get up to Martin here within a lap or two, because he has really been able to shrink this gap. And Jeffrey Finguy has gotten past Lane Sanders for the third position. And meanwhile, Hamill is fighting back on Freeze side by side coming up through here. Hamill and Freeze. Freeze is going to not be in the optimal position, but he's going to get a run off the corner. But it looks like Derek Hamill is going to keep this. Derek Hamill is in need of a desperate run, a really good run as well, because after Bristol, by all rights, he had Bristol 1, and then the motor blew. And I spoke to him about that several weeks ago, right before Richmond, and he said that he wasn't going to let that bother him, because it was something that could just happen. But he believes that he can get this 47 team. They are near the bottom of the bin in points. But he believes that he can get this team up, and they will be able to prevail. And they are doing a really good job, 6th place right now. But my eyes are watching the 54 of Nick Breeding and the 00 Christian Vargas. These guys, I believe, are going to be the championship favorites come Charlotte in later this season. But right now, Breeding is holding on to 8th. He's stayed in 8th for most of this race. Christian Vargas has climbed a few spots up to 9th. He's got past Ryan Griffin, who has dropped several spots since the start of the race. But you'll see these two cars fighting for a championship at the end of this year, I believe. These two Toyotas are really strong. Breeding has the consistency. Vargas has the flashes of success. Of course, back up front, the lead has shrunk again, 0.6 of a second now between the 20 and the 66. J.D. Martin, he finally came over the radio and he said, I just don't have the speed that 20 car has. And I will not be surprised if Sanford gets up to the 66 within the next lap, because he is really strong here as they come downhill for the 8th time today. Sanford now, he's going to dive it in. J.D. Martin is trying desperately to hold on to it, but Sanford closes in ever so slightly. This is a lot of time gained between the 20 and the 66. Now, mind you, if this happens, if they are able to get side by side, that can open up the door for Jeffrey Finguy, for Lane Sanders, heck, even Mac Johnson. Johnson has surprised me thus far. That number 51 team, Mac Johnson told me, he said he doesn't particularly care for road course racing, but it's something that he is able to do really well, and it is showing. The JBL Toyota is up here in the top 5, and we'll notice there are a lot of Toyotas in the top 10. The leader is J.D. Martin's Toyota. Charles Sanford is second in a Toyota. Mac Johnson, obviously. Then we have back here in 8th and now 10th. That's half of the top 10 are Toyotas. Toyota has really brought a really good road course car this season. Even though this is really the only time we're going to be using it. And I spoke to TRD's directing manager for the Right Lane Cup Series, and he told me that they wanted to be good on all aspects because they felt that they could really pounce and get a driver in victory lane this week. And honestly, I totally believe him, because they have gotten 5 cars in the top 10 with that Toyota branding. But J.D. Martin has really been able to put his lead back. He gained 0.2 on Charles Sanford. But that has opened up the door for Jeffrey Finguy. Finguy and that 92 team, they are trying to become the first Right Lane Cup Series team to win multiple races. And Finguy is really a prime candidate. He's had a really good season. Just a couple of really unfortunate errors have costed that team a spot as the points leader. But Finguy told me when we sat down and interviewed him and Lane Sanders, Finguy told me that he believed that this team is a few clicks away, and if they're able to spread it out to the whole team, that the Finguy Paisami team will be a dominant force, maybe even the best Ford team. But they have a lot of time, they have a lot of ground to make up in that guards. The 29 and the 22 have both had dismal seasons by their standards. But up front, Charles Sanford has reeled in the 66. No, he hasn't. He goes wide. Here comes Jeffrey Finguy to the inside of Charles Sanford. He is going to take the second position. That is exactly what J.D. Martin wanted to see. Martin is going to pull away, probably 10, 12 car lengths over Finguy. Sanford slips back to third. Lane Sanders and the Domino's Pontiac is back here in fourth. I will suspect, the teams told me we might have pit stops. We might not. They don't know if the fuel can go that long. But I suspect that these teams are going to try their best and make it to the end on gas. So we are 11 laps in to this Right Lane Cup Series. This is the seventh round of the season here in the Right Lane Cup Series here at Canadian Tire. We will be right back after these messages.
During a 500-mile race, the Texaco Havoline race team will change the tires, replace the fuel, and adjust the suspension. But there's one thing engineered to go the distance: the oil. Havoline, race-proven protection.
You spend the day going in circles, and you earn the right to do one more. That's fuel for the soul.
Should probably go.
Welcome back to the Right Lane Cup Series 7th round of the season here at Canadian Tire in Canada. J.D. Martin has held a good 2.5 second lead over Jeffrey Finguy. While we were away, Lane Sanders was able to take third place from Charles Sanford, who is in the clutches of several cars, including Vince Freeze, who has moved from 6th to 4th. We have Derek Hamill, and then we have Mac Johnson, who has slipped back to 7th. Nick Breeding is 8th. Taylor Frey has gotten into 9th, and Ryan Griffin holds top 10. While Christian Vargas, a very big championship favorite, has slipped back to 12th. This has been a very interesting turn of events because Martin has suddenly lost a full second on Jeffrey Finguy. Finguy is absolutely on rails right now. And he came over the radio, the crew chief came and told the 92 coming that time by to let it rip. And it looks like Finguy is going to let it rip because he has cut this lead down significantly. Here he is on the back bumper of J.D. Martin. Lane Sanders is trying to join the fray as well. And you have several cars back here trying to fight for the latter half of the top 5. Charles Sanford holds on. Derek Hamill is up to 5th as Vince Freeze slips back to 6th. Mac Johnson is 7th. Finguy loses a little bit of momentum that time. He slipped back probably to about a second lead behind J.D. Martin. Lane Sanders is trying to get back up here, and the emergency piece, the Domino's Pontiac. But I would not be shocked if this is going to be a 3-horse battle for the lead. The lead has stayed remarkably close. And there we have an issue. That is the 58 car Angel Gutierrez, the Subway Ford, having problems. So we're going to go ahead and go through the field. Of course, J.D. Martin is 1st. Jeffrey Finguy is 2nd. Lane Sanders 3rd. Charles Sanford is 4th. Derek Hamill's 5th. Vince Freeze is 6th. Mac Johnson 7th. Nick Breeding is 8th. Taylor Frey is holding on a really good strong run in ninth, and Ryan Griffin rounds out your top 10. DJ Curtis, who started this race after Austin Scott had some medical issues, is 11th. Christian Vargas is 12th. Jeff Bolton, a really strong run. The Coca-Cola Pontiac is 13th. Zachary Fitzwater, another decorated road course racer from Australia, is 14th. Julio Caesar is 15th. Alexander Phoenix is 16th. Samuel England is 17th. Peter Onjack's 18th. Luke Evans is 19th. And Mitchell Carter rounds out your top 20. Then we have Dunlop Pratt, Ryan Reed, Nicky Martinez, Jesse Turner with an abysmal run in 24th. Henry Thomas is 25th. Landon Thomas is 26th. Evan Marisi is 27th. Logan Cloud is 28th. RJ Bishop's 29th. And Cody Goforth is 30th. Then we have Stanley Andrews, Rhodes Gray, Stephen Colon, KJ Hayes is 34th. Justin Henley is 35th. Then it's Daniel Voles, Ben McDonald, and that is the entire field. Ben McDonald, they had some issues. McDonald had apparently had run over a couple of cars around lap 3 or 4. They had to come down pit road and rip the hood off. We had several cars have issues during the course of this race. Of course, we saw Angel Gutierrez had to pit, but we had several cars, including Griffin Lapel McDermott, James Ellison, the 99 Asher Evelyn, and Chris Martins in the 05. They reportedly all had issues around the same time, including McDermott had a tire problem, as did Ellison, took them out of the race. The 99 had a fuel pickup issue, and the 05 broke a transmission. Here's the 58, that's Angel Gutierrez, is a lap down. Gutierrez came over the radio, said that car just would not, just shut off. It just shut off on him. So Gutierrez isn't going to be 38th. McDonald gets 37th. But up front, we had a pass for the lead. What on earth? Jeffrey Finguy has gotten around J.D. Martin. Must have happened in the previous lap. Finguy is now racing away from J.D. Martin. This is absolutely not what Lane Sanders and Vince Freeze wanted to see. Freeze has also moved up from 6th to 4th, has gone around Hamill and Sanford. This is an absolutely topsy-turvy lap. Mac Johnson has slipped back. Taylor Frey has moved forward into 8th. Nick Breeding is 9th. Ryan Griffin's 10th. But look at the gap that Finguy has put over J.D. Martin. Martin has got to try to do anything to get back up there. Lane Sanders has also lost a ton of time. And it just looks like Finguy was just able to get a good run down the hill and get around the number 66 Sunny D Toyota Camry. Lane Sanders is, now we have a fight for 4th again. Here comes Charles Sanford to the inside of Vince Freeze. Freeze is trying to put a good case. This will be his 3rd top 10 of the year, his 2nd top 5 after his win at Daytona. And Freeze, I spoke to him, one of the nicest drivers in the garage, I feel. Freeze told me that they rallied after last week's top 10 at Darlington, and they want to try to make a good, solid run at this championship. He feels like he can do it. That Dormer Security number 9 Ford is a really good, well put together team. Freeze told me that they were just missing a few small pieces, some consistency here and there, but he believes that he will be able to be a dark horse for this title. And I told him go for it. Of course, Charles Sanford trying to dig out of his big hole in points. Derek Hamill is the same way. Mac Johnson also trying to dig out of points. A lot of these cars in this top 10 are so far down in points that this would just be the start of a good turnaround. But up front, there is Angel Gutierrez. Gutierrez has finally gotten that car out of pit road. They got the car fired, but this is not what Finguy wanted to see. This is exactly what J.D. Martin wanted to see. And look at this. Finguy has suddenly given up probably half a second to the 66 Sunny D Toyota. But we're going to have to see how they are able to negotiate the subway forward of Angel Gutierrez here. because this could entirely define the fight for the lead, and this could ultimately change the outcome of the race. We're coming to 11 laps, because now we are at lap 19 out of 26. 7 laps to go here at Canadian Tire. This race has really gone by rather quickly. Finguy has run down Angel Gutierrez. What will Gutierrez do? What can JD Martin do? Martin had gained time. He gained half a second on the number 92 Mayer Ford. It looks like he has started to slip back a little bit. Lane Sanders has also fallen into the clutches of Vince Friese. Friese had a really good lap. He is shot out of a cannon, has run down the Domino's Pontiac. Finguy is still trapped behind Gutierrez, but Martin overdrove the corner. That's going to allow Lane Sanders and Vince Friese to roll up onto the second place car. We have a couple of fights back here. Taylor Frey is on rails right now. Going to get 7th behind, get 7th away from Mac Johnson. Charles Sanford is still looking to get past Derek Hamill, get into the top 5. But this is not what JD Martin wanted to see. 2 very fast race cars on his back bumper. But Finguy has really been able to steady out because Gutierrez has just let him go. He's just been able to ride behind Gutierrez. We'll see the intervals here. Finguy gained a whole 1.5 seconds on JD Martin. And look at this fight for third. Lane Sanders and Vince Friese fighting very ferociously for this third spot. Sanders might let him go, and I think that's what's going to happen. Sanders realizes Friese has the faster car. Vince Friese now moves up to third, trying to get a hold of JD Martin. Martin is trying to get a hold of Jeffrey Finguy. Finguy has just let Gutierrez go. Gutierrez must have gotten the car refired, because now they're pulling away from Jeffrey Finguy. I believe Gutierrez they put tires on that race car. And now Finguy is going to pull away. He's still going to have a good chunk of time. Look at this. Vince Friese has pulled to the inside of JD Martin. He believes he might be able to get this position off of Martin. Side by side coming through the last 2 corners. Ooh, a little close action there. Lane Sanders is all over this action, trying to get a hold. Looks like he might be able to get this. This is absolutely what Vince Friese wanted. Friese wanted to get another top 5 and reinsert himself in the championship battle. But this is absolutely what Finguy wanted. 4 seconds separates the 92 and the 9. 2 Fords are your top 2. Then it's a Toyota and JD Martin, a Pontiac and Lane Sanders, and a Chevrolet and Derek Hamill. Hamill is having a really good run. But what about Taylor Frey in the 15 Dodge for On Giotto? This team has had a lot of surprising runs this season. Has run really mid-pack, but they have some surprising top 10 appearances. I believe they had one last week. Right, I believe they had one at Richmond. Charles Sanford slipped back to 7th. Mac Johnson's 8th. And this has been a dogfight right here between Nick Breeding, Ryan Griffin, DJ Curtis, Jeff Bolton, Alexander Phoenix, and Julio Cesar. This whole pack has just been all over each other. Christian Vargas, though, back to 16th. This is just not what the 00 team wanted. They just have not had any race pace. They've not had any long run pace. But up front, though, JD Martin is pressuring the number 9 of Vince Friese, trying desperately to get a hold of second place once again. Here comes Martin to the inside. Friese is going to cut him off. And Finguy has begun to pull away. We are at 5 laps to go. But you see right there, cut 0.5 of a second off of the 92's lead. That's a half a second. At this rate, Friese could run the 92 down. We'll have to see. Of course, Friese has been able to get a good gap between him and JD Martin. Lane Sanders back to 4th. Of course, Sanders also told me that he has had a couple top 10s this year. Darlington, he blew a transmission coming out of pit road. Had his day absolutely ruined. Sanders told me that he believes that this team, they have the opportunity to win races and possibly could even win the championship. Sanders told me that what happened last week was his own fault. He accidentally, when he went to third gear, he didn't hit the clutch and he just grenaded the motor. A rookie mistake, but Sanders told me it was okay, that he was ready for whatever the season was going to give him, and he thought he had a really good shot at winning the race this weekend. It looks like he might get he'll easily come off with a top 5, but a strong run for the 0-1 team from Spa. Vince Friese, though, has gapped J.D. Martin. This is absolutely what the 9 wanted. Let's see. There's Vince Friese at the line now. See how much he gained. Oh my goodness, 0.7 of a second that time. Friese is on rails, 4 laps to go in this race. Friese might actually catch him. Might catch the 92. With 3 to go, if he keeps doing 0.7, he will be there. Friese just has to keep hitting his marks because I believe Finn Guy started to lag back a little. Finn Guy said they didn't know if they were going to have enough gas. We'll see here. Finn Guy through the uphill right-handers. Vince Friese throws it away. He went wide in the corner. Here comes J.D. Martin up here. Lane Sanders trying to hold on to 4th, and Derek Hamill's under attack from Taylor Frey. Taylor Frey is on rails right now. That 15 is the fastest car on the racetrack and is going to run down the 47. What an attaboy to Taylor Frey and that whole team. They absolutely needed this. But meanwhile, Vince Friese trying to run down Jeffrey Finn Guy. Finn Guy's at the line now. I would have to think that Friese lost a lot of time that time by 2.82. He lost oh my lord, back to a 4-second lead. I believe unless Finn Guy runs out of fuel, it's going to be lights out for that number 9 team. Absolutely disastrous lap for Vince Friese. But Friese can hold his head on a 2nd place finish. That number 9 team had they started, I believe, in the latter half of the top 10. They moved up to 2nd. Good job for them. J.D. Martin, your pole sitter, holding on to 3rd is a good run. Lane Sanders started outside pole. He slipped back to 4th. Hamill started 6th. Finn Guy started 5th. Holding on to Taylor. How about Taylor Frey? And that number 15 team, I cannot sing their praises enough. The Venmo Dodge is now fighting Derek Hamill to get into the top 5. This is something. That team has shot out of a cannon. Now, I believe he's going to be able to get the 47, at least be able to stay with them up front. Though we have a battle for 2nd place still between Friese, between Martin, and then we have this big fight back here to get into the top 5 between Lane Sanders, Derek Hamill, Taylor Frey, Charles Sanford. Mac Johnson's on his own, but look who has slipped in to the top 10. It is DJ Curtis, the Miller Lite Pontiac. Look at this. This would be an absolutely great run for that number 2 team. Curtis had to dig himself out of a whole race deficit after taking over for Austin Scott after Scott had medical issues. And Curtis has had several good top 20 runs, but a top 10 here at Canadian Tire would be an absolutely welcome sight for the Miller Lite Pontiac team. Nick Breeding, your points leader, slipping back still. Caesar is up to 12th. Samuel Ingles up to 13th. And then rounding out your top 15 are a pair of MB2 cars, Jeff Bolton and Alexander Phoenix. With 2 laps to go, Taylor Frey is on fire. Now underneath, Lane Sanders trying to get the 4th position from the 0-1 team. Frey might be able to actually get this pass completed. But meanwhile, up front, this is a disaster for Vince Friese as J.D. Martin is all over the back bumper of the number 9 team. Friese is able to gain 4/10 that time, but coming around through these last 2 corners, we are coming to the white flag, this time by Jeffrey Finn Guy. Will take the white flag The 92 team is one lap away from becoming the first Right Lane Cup Series team to win multiple races in a season, become the first multi-race winner in the Right Lane Cup Series period, and would have the lead of the all-times wins list. I'm sure Finn Guy would absolutely love to have that. Finn Guy has run a phenomenal race here. Very few errors, was able to methodically make his way through the field and took the lead from JD Martin on lap number 14. Coming downhill, coming up here to the pair of right-handers. See if he can get through here flawlessly. Oh, Finn Guy kind of goes wide there. That's okay. I doubt it'll do anything. Finn Freeze and JD Martin do the same thing. But behind them, Lane Sanders is underneath Taylor Frey, trying to get that position. Coming uphill for the final time here at Canadian Tire. Jeffrey Finn Guy has put on a phenomenal race. Coming through turn 7. Absolutely flawless. And I have to give a round of applause for that team. They put on a phenomenal race weekend. Coming through the final corner, Jeffrey Finn Guy, Mayer, the 92 team, and Finn Guy Pusami Motorsports will win the 7th round of the season at Canadian Tire in Canada. Becomes the first multi-race winner in the Right Lane Cup Series. Vince Freeze comes home 2nd. JD Martin is 3rd. Taylor Frey holds on to 4th over Lane Sanders. Charles Sanford is 6th. Derek Hamill is 7th. Mac Johnson is 8th. Ryan Griffin is 9th. And DJ Curtis, attaboy to them for a top 10. Nick Breeding, your points leader, will get an 11th. Julio Caesar 12th. Jeff Bolton gets a 13th over Samuel England. And then rounding out your top 15 will be Alexander Phoenix. But an absolutely great run for Jeffrey Finn Guy and the number 92 team. An absolutely phenomenal run for them. And this is an absolutely big milestone for somebody who was bound to win multiple races in a season. Finn Guy and this team were the first. And that has set a benchmark for all the teams to follow. And this will put an absolute explanation point on his championship hopes. And I do believe this will turn the championship standings upside down. Thank you guys so much for watching this race, and we will get your results here in a second.